Welcome back to Beagle Eye Visions! What is up, Internet? It has been a long time. I'm very excited for this one. This book was so much fun to read. I had an absolute blast. Shout out to Dyer, everybody. Dyer is the author of today's book. Esoteric Hollywood, okay? Sex, cults, and symbols in film. A phenomenal book, 10 out of 10. This was a fun one, although there are so many different rabbit holes that he takes us down. I didn't even know where to start. I didn't know what to write down. There's so many topics so many different topics that I wanted to talk about, and so many things to hit on, so many fantastic subjects. I mean, he goes so deep. Dyer is a very astute researcher. He's awesome. He's a legend, I'd say. So we're gonna get right into it. So in the introduction, Dyer explains why he wrote this book, explaining it is important to be observant while watching things like film, news, or other media. I would like to add that I agree with him when he hammers in that we need to study semiotics. Semiotics. Semiotics is the study of signs and symbols and their use or interpretation. Coming from the late 19th century Greek, semiotikos, I don't know how to pronounce that, significance, portending, worth marking, also observant of signs. So it's very good to study the Emerald language, you know. We're always talking about that over here at Beagle Eye Visions. So, of course, Dyer is a fantastic researcher, like I just said. So he starts dumping profound quotes on us immediately by the fifth page, like all great researchers do. The first quote is from a man named Mircea Eliade. I practiced that, but then I forgot. Mircea Eliade. I think I'm close. I don't know. Romanian philosopher, writer, and comparative religion scholar. Eliade's work focuses on religious experience and notions of the sacred and the profane, time and eternity, notably his own version of the Nietzschean concept of eternal return, where religious initiates actually participate in the external mysteries of the classical myths, and that's a direct quote from page 5. Before the introduction is over, Dyer compares the elites of Hollywood to priests and gods, utilizing spells and enchanting spells on an unwitting audience with their own belief systems and ideals of chaos and confusion. Not a bad way to describe it. Turning the average Steve into a parasitical entity that feeds on the living, known as a zombie. Consuming the flesh of a fellow man. Yeah, so that was very interesting. I guess the way that I wrote that in my notes it's not really, it's kind of confusing. Beginning chapter 1, The Occult Empire, Jay teaches us about MK Ultra and how it was used on various celebrities in Hollywood. I've mentioned this before in the book review of Musical Truth. Go back and check that out. Mentioning Elvis's secretive career in the military. Marilyn Monroe and the Black Dahlia are also examples of how it happened. Marilyn Monroe even has a Department of Defense identification card. And that's a fact, I looked it up. It's crazy. Why would Marilyn Monroe have a Department of Defense ID? It's identification card. That's so wild. So this chapter also tells of how the Wizard of Oz is an occult allegory. Mark Passio, give a shout out to Mark Passio. An absolute legend. Mark Passio is amazing. He breaks down the Wizard of Oz and the Freemasonic allegory that's within the Wizard of Oz. He does an amazing job. It's available for free on YouTube. I highly recommend it. I'll leave it in the description of this video. Dyer lists he lists more celebrities that have been chewed up and spit out by Hollywood, such as Miley Cyrus or Amanda Bynes. Man, there's... I would say a lot of people don't look at this person as chewed up and spit out by Hollywood, but I do. Getting into Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Rihanna. There's a lot of them, and they all, like if you watch interviews, they all say like they all have alter egos and they all have multiple personalities. Just like the Hannah Montana TV show. It was a TV show all about how this chick has she has her normal life persona, and then she has her stage persona, that's not healthy to have multiple personalities. Let me just say that out loud. It is not healthy to have multiple personalities. And I was at work the other day, and actually these my coworkers, they're kind of young. I would say, I don't know if they're minors. They're like 17 to 19 territory, and they were bragging about how they have alter egos. They were bragging about it. I'm like, what? Like, multiple personalities, and you're not even like 20 years old yet, and you have multiple personalities and alter egos? Well, I'm going off on a tangent, but it's crazy. People really need to. This is why people need to read books. Man, people need to read books. Put Facebook down, people. Put Instagram down, yo. You're not getting no TikTok philosophy. Goodness gracious. So, chapter 2, after my tangent, chapter 2 is all about an esoteric analysis of Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. I gotta give a cheer out to that one. I'm spamming the soundboard now, but Eyes Wide Shut is just a phenomenal film. If you haven't seen that, you need to go watch Eyes Wide Shut, and then go watch all of Rob Ager's work that he does on Eyes Wide Shut. Watch all of Sean McCann at Wake the Dead's work on Eyes Wide Shut. Watch all of Jay Dyer's content on Eyes Wide Shut, and then you will understand what I'm trying to tell you. So, Eyes Wide Shut came from a novel by author Arthur Schnitzler titled Tram Novelle. It is the final film directed by Stanley Kubrick. Kubrick's intention was to bridge the gap between reality and dream world, revealing the truth of how Hollywood is ran like a show by the elite establishment through rituals and magic. Magic with a K, that is. In tangent with, we're going to learn in tangent with other forms of government, really. Kubrick was such an astute director, and he paid attention to every detail of his films. Sean McCann, again, shout out Sean McCann. I'm going to spam this. Spam it again. Shout out Sean McCann. You're a legend. Love you, bro. Kubrick was such an astute director, he pays attention to. Sean McCann of Wake the Dead podcast said that every frame of Kubrick's movie is a perfect photo. And I would agree. If you pause it at any time, and actually in any of Stanley Kubrick's films, it is like a perfect photo that says over 1,000 words. You could dissect that frame all day. You could spend all day dissecting a frame of one of his films. Dyer goes on to say the beginning of the film takes us through the twin pillars of initiation, like Jachin and Boaz of Solomon's Temple. These pillars are known in Freemasonry as the entranceway to the divine or transcendental planes or spiritual worlds. Here's another quote. As we will see, the course of the film's narrative shares the same preoccupation with sex rights, initiation, and ultimately the issue of the dissolution of the moral structures of the middle class. The Hartfords, as they pass beyond the gates of inhibitions. That's a quote from page 30. Meaning, in my opinion, that people, this is so important, do not care. People do not care. They have no care. I see it every day, every time I leave the house. I see how much people do not care. I mean, look at how many Shout out to our, we have a little bit over of 100 subscribers on this channel, but like, it just goes to show what people care about. The types of information that we're putting out on this channel, and the books we do, mostly book reviews, is the big foundation of this channel. And how many people, like, it doesn't get millions of views, like, but you record I literally have a channel of GTA San Andreas. I have a video of GTA San Andreas. It's a 2-minute clip. It has thousands of views of a ridiculous video game. It hurts my soul. But back to the book. I'm digressing again. People do not raise their children with a moral foundation. It's chase money, chase money, chase money. Go get that job, chase money, get the piece of paper, get the bachelor degree, get the GED. Chase all these different pieces of paper so you can get more pieces of paper. What? Chase money for pleasure, get the promotion for a longer vacation time. Go to school, get a degree, get a job, get a car. If the kid doesn't do these things, they get looked down on and shamed on for not playing the game. I know so many people, so many of my friends, they're not lazy people. It's just we don't want to work for corporations that don't care about us. Especially when a corporation, even if you request a date off 4 months in advance, it's just a request. It's like, no, I'm warning the job that I'm going. Probably if you schedule me on that day, I'm not coming in. It's not a request like what jobs say. It's so ridiculous. These jobs don't care about us, and they show it on a daily basis. The book points out the significance of mirrors in this movie, like other Kubrick films, representing the inner world of one's psyche or portals to other worlds. We'll see that in The Shining as well, and countless of other movies. There's a movie called Mirrors. I think I mentioned that in the Musical Truth book review as well. The topic of theosophy also comes up, and I want to lay out what theosophy is. So the term theosophy, etymologically rooted in the Greek words theos, meaning God or divinity, and sophos, I hope I pronounced that right, meaning wisdom, which translates to the pursuit of divine wisdom. That's what theosophy means. It constitutes an esoteric philosophical framework that undertakes the exploration, that undertakes the exploration and direct apprehension of the inherent mysteries within the realms of existence and the natural world. Shout out to Brandon Martin for the information on theosophy for that. I totally stole Brandon Martin's slides and I wrote that down right in my notes. But that's another thing. People say that, like, a close friend of mine came over and I started talking about theology, love under will, and he's like, oh, that's Mark Passio. No! It's not Mark Passio. He doesn't own this information. Nobody owns this information. That's like saying somebody owns morality. That's ridiculous. It's just the height of ignorance to say something like that. And it drives me nuts. It makes me so... It makes me angry. It turns me into the Hulk. I understand where Mark's anger is coming from. Like, he says it all the time. No, I don't own this information. It's just information. It's knowledge. It's truth. And truth is that which is. So the Hartfords go to a satanic Christmas party, and everything goes downhill from there. Dyer gives us a quick lesson on Aleister Crowley, Anton LaVey, and Albert Pike. Like I said, sending us down a whole crap load of different types of rabbit holes, while describing more of the film in detail, as well as SRA, which is satanic ritual abuse, which ties directly into the 3rd chapter. Chapter 3. Kubrick Bears the Light, and the chapter 3 is all about The Shining. Another amazing film, but I'm not going to spam the soundboard. Or I'm going to try not to. Kubrick's films obviously have a lot of layers going on, and they all correlate with each other if you really watch them. They all have similar themes such as SRA and the so-called American Dream. Dyer alludes to the film being about being about the facade of America being the greatest country in the world. And I also want to give a shout out to the band Chin Up, because they have an entire song where it's like, you know, America's not the greatest country in the world anymore. I don't even think there is a great country in the world anymore. They're all seemingly pretty immoral, ran by evil occultists who want to steal your money and lock you in a cage if you don't pay them money. So, another tangent. So, Dyer alludes to being the greatest country in the world, even though we have an extremely dark past and we continue to repeat history. The movie Full Metal Jacket is a perfect example. The very beginning of The Shining's opening has a Native American sort of chanting as the camera/audience is looming above the family as an entity or a spirit, similar to how Eyes Wide Shut takes us through the Freemasonic pillars at the very beginning of the film. So I'm going to grab the book. I'm going to read it directly from the book for this quote, because there's a lot to say. J. Dyer has a lot to say in this. This book is just so incredible. If you don't own this book, please, I'm going to put a link of this book straight to the website. Get yourself a signed copy from J. Dyer himself, and then even buy the sequel too. Esoteric Hollywood #2 is just as good. Oh man, these books get me fired up. So, here, I'll show you the pictures too, because there's pictures. Look, he puts pictures in here. Look, it's so awesome. J. Dyer he's a nice guy. Helps our imaginations, you know, with the pictures. So, arriving at the hotel, Jack and his new masters become acquainted. The interview scene conveys an overtly Americana facade that clues the viewer into dual symbolism of the film, where the overlooked is both Jack's degrading psyche and a microcosm of the United States. With a friendly, charming veneer, the baby boomer generation... if you watch J. Dyer on YouTube, you know he's always talking about the boomers, the baby boomer generation. He's always clowning around. That's why it made me giggle. The baby boomer generation has a dark side that is portrayed both figuratively and literally in Jack's brutality at the mystic locale of the Overlook. In this sense, America is not baseball and apple pie, and Manager Ullman's JFK-esque appearance masks his own potential to actually be nefarious, while surrounded by icons of Americana, from flags to paintings of Native American artworks. So before we see the interview, Jack is reading a magazine titled Playgirl, and on the cover, one of the articles reads, I hope YouTube doesn't slap me with this like they did with my recent video that was all about the religion of money. Shout out to Cubbyhole Podcast. Yeah, thank you, YouTube. And YouTube, I was watching one of his live streams, and YouTube shut off J. Dyer's live stream right when he was getting juicy. Man, you guys have been driving me nuts, YouTube. So anyways, the article reads, Incest, Why Parents Sleep with Their Children. And this is something I didn't notice until I read this book. You know, once you realize that and you go watch the movie, you watch the Blu-ray, it says it right there on the magazine that he's reading. It's so bizarre. It's really creepy. It sent chills down my spine. I'm like Jesus, Bruce Lee Christ, man. So on top of that, the wife Wendy is reading The Catcher in the Rye, which is a very interesting book. Fun fact here: the guy who shot John Lennon was supposedly inspired by the same book, so it's really interesting that Wendy is reading these all these really weird occult books. Maybe I need to get a copy of The Catcher in the Rye, but we clearly don't have much money here at this channel. Otherwise, I would be editing the videos. So Danny has undergone so much trauma, poor guy, that he develops a split personality, and this is a real phenomenon. The human mind can only handle so much. So when the altered state or spirit allows the mind to disassociate from reality, especially when with an SRA victim, a lot of SRA victims. Again, shout out to Wake the Dead podcast. They do some amazing episodes with Carrie Olajay. I hope I'm pronouncing that directly. And shout out to Maria West too, because she also gets into the topic of SRA. So, lost my spot. You'll see celebrities adopt this too, as I discussed in Musical Truth Volume 1 book review. Again, shout out to Mark Devlin. He's going on tour soon. Look out, if you're on the East Coast, Mark Devlin's going on tour. Look out. Get those tickets, man. Beyonce, Nicki Minaj, like I mentioned, both have alternating personalities. Even some male hip-hop artists that brag about the same thing. Tupac and DMX have both written lyrics about having conversations with demons in their songs, arguing with demons, arguing and having conversations, I guess. Even another example is how every millennial teenage girl grew up with the Hannah Montana Miley Cyrus conflict. The Disney TV show is all about how this spoiled little girl has alter egos and she switches from one another, like whatever situation she's dealing with, she switches from personalities. Like I said, definitely not healthy at all for any children. Jeez. Homeschool your children, and definitely don't let them watch Disney. I mean, I guess most people have Disney Plus subscriptions, so dang, R.I.P. I guess. Healthy programming for little girls to compare their life to, don't you think? That's what I wrote in my notes. So Rob Ager also notes that The Shining is similar to fairy tales like Hansel and Gretel or the classical story of Theseus and the Minotaur. And I just barely scratched the surface of the Minotaur in the video called The Allegory of Titan Quest. I'll put that link in the description. The maze is representation of Jack's degrading psyche, which is where he meets his demise, just like the story of the Minotaur. So I'll read another direct quote. I'll read this whole book to you guys if I had the time, but I just simply do not have the time. There's so many, especially here. Here's another good picture. You'll see this, here's a little side note that he does. This is why I love this book. This is my favorite. These little side notes right here. You get these, there's so much information. Esoteric Hollywood 2 doesn't really have these little squares of, these I'm going to call them rabbit hole squares. The sequel of this book doesn't really have too many of them. I believe they're still there. I don't really remember. So there is an association between the symbol of the maze, the model, its referent, the actual maze. This is a deep, difficult subject that gets into a lot of heavy philosophy and semiotics. But the idea is simply foreign to most moderns because of stupid philosophy. Thus, Plato discussed simulacra, and we can see simulacrum in Spielberg's Jurassic Park, where a simulation of a theme park shows simulations of simulations, the dinosaurs. As an example, Hollywood, just like esotericism or like writing itself, is the manipulation of copies, signs, and symbols. E.T. is about symbols, language, and meaning, like Close Encounters, another movie. And we are constantly given camera angles and shots in E.T. from a child's perspective. The cross-reference to Star Wars is also interesting. Reminiscent of the Hortus Palantius, the garden maze of the Overlook Hotel would appear to have an alchemical significance in similar fashion to the above. The nearly mystical 17th century eighth wonder of the world, constructed by Elector Frederick Palatine V? Is that five? Palatine the Fifth? For his wife Elizabeth Stuart. According to Enlightenment scholar Dame Frances Yates, the gardens signified Rosicrucian mysteries, both regents being friends of Francis Bacon and then largely destroyed during the 30 Years' War. The garden mages are replete with esoteric symbology. And also, again, another shout out to Titan Quest, that video we did, because we've been doing the grinding series with the Cubbyhole podcast, and in Titan Quest they have the Gardens of Babylon, and they look They look really similar to this picture. So it's kind of cool. The alchemical maze gardens of Frederick the Palatine, the Hortius Palantinus. So, yeah, I thought that was really good. I thought that was a really good section to read. Another scene worthy of mentioning is the scene with the twins standing in front of the two posters. One poster reads, Monarch to represent CIA's Project Monarch. Another rabbit hole. Definitely do some research if this is your first time hearing about Project Monarch. And another poster of a Minotaur. Wink, wink. Project Monarch is a part of the MK Ultra umbrella. It officially began by the U.S. Army in the early 1960s, meant to create unconscious assassins like the Manchurian Candidate, which goes back to Catcher in the Rye, and which goes back to how John Lennon died. R.I.P. John Lennon. Imagine that. These assassins could be activated by using a specific keyword or phrase while in an unconscious state. Referring to the monarch butterfly, a person experiencing severe trauma will enter a floating state of mind, and this was visualized very well in the recent Jordan Peterson film called Get Out. That film is absolutely amazing. 10 out of 10, just like this book. And I think Get Out, I think he breaks it down in Esoteric Hollywood too. So buy this book, buy Esoteric Hollywood too. He had a package deal where he was selling both of them on sale, but it was limited time. It's probably over now. It could also be a representation of the transformation caterpillar to cocoon, a cocoon representing dormancy, you know, and then butterfly. And butterflies always return to their point of origin. Credit to archive.org. Archive.org is an amazing website. I just recently downloaded all of the Beatles cartoons from archive.org. I love that website. There is much more to The Shining, so shout out to Jay Dyer for being so perceptive. He is clearly well educated. Let me give another shout out to Jay Dyer, because it's good stuff, man. The book up to this point is already well worth the money. Yeah, straight up, big facts. So chapter 5, H.G. Wells, science fiction, propaganda, and Spielberg's mythos. So Dyer schools us on the propaganda this chapter, explaining that we discuss science fiction, modern science, and religion as three distinct topics, although anyone with the gumption to study history will find these three topics are molding together more and more as history goes on, especially with all this smart city stuff going on. We have robots at grocery stores. Have you seen iRobot with Will Smith, people? Why do we have robots at grocery stores? I don't trust it. This chapter breaks down the allegory of the books The Time Machine by H.G. Wells and also The Island of Dr. Moreau. I have never read either of those books, unfortunately, with references to Back to the Future, Darwin, and more MK Ultra. It's fascinating the way Jay Dyer takes us through the timeline of this period. Scientism tricked all the boomers into what they were doing was progress. Oh, I lost my spot. It was progress when science can be quite destructive. People grind so hard for this so-called progress without realizing that we are creating our own dystopia. I mean, we are literally living in a dystopia right now. One thing I will point out is the Manhattan Project, another fascinating rabbit hole. Definitely study that if this is your first time hearing it. Wow. I am redundant. Okay, so chapters 6, 7, 8, and 9 go into very thorough detail about predictive programming and how technology is presented as convenience, progress, and safety, when the reality is that we are all being turned into slaves. Oof. Yeah. Again, facts. Dyer covers a lot of movies I have not seen, and there were some movies like Neverending Story. I don't think I ever saw that in my youth, and as an adult, I don't have much desire to watch children movies like Neverending Story. I mean, this isn't the type of YouTube channel where I'm gonna, I spent 3 days watching every single episode of SpongeBob and then I'm gonna do a review on. No, this is not that type of channel. I don't have that type of time either. You know, my time is precious. I'm not gonna sit and watch all of Nickelodeon's TV shows and do a book review on it. And I'm definitely not gonna eat TV dinners for a week and then do a review on that. That's just ridiculous. And again, those channels get millions and millions and millions of views. I don't understand. So, Chapter 9 on Minority Report explains where the internet stems from. Oh, and this is really fascinating. This is a crazy rabbit hole that I started researching of where the internet came from. The internet came from DARPA. Contrary to popular belief, this was DARPA's plan. Oh, I'm not going to go back that far. DARPA states the following... DARPA states as the follows concerning its creation and reason for existence. The Soviet Union's launch of Sputnik showed that a fundamental change was needed in America's defense, science, and technology programs. DARPA was formed to meet this need and rejuvenated our defense technological capabilities. In fact, a close friend worked for a few years digitizing mass medical records. And while most are aware of Google's attempt to digitize all books, if they were aware, the why would be unfathomable. I've warned for several years that the end goal of all this digitization is not efficiency and trendy iWatches, Fitbits, etc., to monitor heart rates and location. The ultimate goal is total mind control, loss of free will, and complete rewrite of all past reality. Consider, for example, the power the system will wield with the ability to delete all past versions of literature, religious texts, Shakespeare, 1984, a book review we've previously done. Nothing will be sacred and unable to be revised. Remember that in 2009, Amazon erased Orwell's 1984. Your own past may be deleted, is subject to revision or altered to make you the next villain. All this is revealed in detail in Minority Report. Thus, while the public adopts Kindles, the Kindle print itself is assigned the doom of the kindled fire, like Fahrenheit 451, as Richard Grove had said. Richard Grove is another legend. I enjoy Richard Grove's work, although it's been a while since I have seen any. It's been a while since I've seen anything that he's done recently. So yeah, that's absolutely fascinating, and he called it. I mean, look, this book was written. When was this book published? I'm going to try to find out here. I mean, he nailed it. I mean, Dyer was way ahead of his game. You know, like he did so much research. I don't know. There's no year on this book. Where's the copyright year? Yeah, he was just way ahead of the game. And he's still ahead of the game, so I really recommend listening to Dyer because his research is fantastic. Yeah, I can't find the copyright year. So yeah, just fascinating stuff. Dyer does a phenomenal job of covering the Bond series as well. Oh, and before I wanted to give another shout out to somebody. Oh well. So. Dyer does a phenomenal job covering the Bond series. The books cover... Oh, this book covers Dr. No to Quantum of Solace and Skyfall, even mentioning the B-movie Bond film, Never Say Never Again. A movie I've never even heard of until the Scamdemic. Somebody bought the Never Say Never DVD and gifted it to me, and I was like, this is a Bond movie? I never even heard it. When I saw the DVD, I was like, what is this? I've never seen it before. And then Walmart sells the James Bond collection, the Blu-ray collection. You get every Bond movie for like $80. I bought that for myself last year on my birthday. My birthday's coming up April 17th. And also, W's birthday, very synchronistically, is coming up. Before this book review, I had some of the... I had some cherry limeade. It's delicious. It's totally... Now I'm going off on another tangent. But yeah, that movie is really weird. It came out of nowhere. We all know Fleming was an order-following coward. Lost my spot. We all know Fleming was an order-following coward. His work with the military was the inspiration for his novels. Dyer relates the fictional terrorist organization Spectre to the elite shadow government that rules the world. Let's look at the antagonist of Casino Royale, for example. Here's another direct quote from the book. While Le Chiffre funds an uprising, he simultaneously makes a call to his broker to sell 1 million puts, which is stocks. I've never heard of puts. I was like, what is that? Well, I guess it's basically stocks. 1 million puts on Skyfleet, an amorphous airline. We get the impression Le Chiffre plans a terror event that will in some way benefit his selling of the put options. In terms of esoteric analysis, it begins to look strikingly like the events prior to 9/11 that those in the know about. That was a direct quote from page 272. So in Quantum of Solace, we learn about the Green Party from the Al Gore-inspired terrorists. And in Skyfall, Bond faces a Julian Assange Ken doll hacker who is gay for some reason. That was like, you know, right before Hollywood started going woke. No, I think that's right when Hollywood started going woke. Silva, the blonde gay hacker, even organizes an event that seems exactly like the London 7/7/2005 bombing. Yeah, and that's a whole other rabbit hole that I went down, the London bombing that happened in 2005. Very interesting. What in the gay hell is going on in these 007 movies? I just want to give a shout out to my Aunt Betty. Aunt Betty, I miss you. Miss you, Aunt Betty. Hopefully we'll hang out soon. So yeah, that's kind of where I stopped the notes at. The later chapters after the Bond chapters starts getting into Starts getting into Mulholland Drive, Inside David Lynch. Personally, in my opinion, I think David Lynch's work is kind of, I think it's kind of pretentious. I don't know. There's not like, I don't find any interest in it personally. So I kind of I glossed over those. And also he starts getting into Alfred Hitchcock. Jay Dyer breaks down Vertigo. The CIA and Hollywood, the last chapter is The CIA and Hollywood, A Dark Marriage.